Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Joe in Love, here with your AEW Dynamite review for September 15th, 2021. The week before AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. Tonight they were in New Jersey, and next week they'll be in Queens, Arthur Ashe Stadium, their biggest attendance yet, and what will be a loaded show both on Dynamite and Rampage for next week, but we got a solid show for tonight leading up to the stuff next week, but still a bunch to go over. But if you're new to the podcast, if you want to see more of these videos, click that subscribe button if you want to see more. Plus, if you like this video, be sure to click that like button anytime, either now or at the end of the video. But there you go. And with the intro out of the way, let's get into covering Dynamite now, shall we? So, first we had CM Punk on commentary uh, for the majority of the night. And, you know, in 2010, when for a brief while he was a commentator for Raw, he had an element. And here again, for Dynamite, he had a nice element on commentary, adding to the booth with Excalibur, who's now back from his wedding. Congratulations again to Excalibur, uh, and also with Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone in the booth. So, first match though, Adam Cole makes his in-ring debut for AEW Dynamite, or on AEW Dynamite, against Frankie Kazarian. Now, the music, the looks of it, I mean, took a while for me to adjust because, I mean, when you see a guy wrestle in one place for a good amount of time, and then he's in AEW now, it took a bit to adjust in my head, but still with the aesthetics of it all, solid match for his debut match at AEW. So they're back and forth, chain wrestling. Then once the match picked up, it was a Chaos Theory German suplex by Kazarian for near fall. Then Kazarian went for a crossface chicken wing, but was countered off the ropes by Cole for near fall. Then a big super kick for a 2 count. Cole then went for the Panama Sunrise, but Kazarian countered with an Alabama Slam, followed a springboard leg drop for their fall. Then, after a big lariat, after exchange of strikes by Kazarian, it looked like Kaz went for a suplex, but Cole countered to a Yushi Goroshi for a 2 count. And finally, after Cole eventually hit the Panama Sunrise and then the last shot, or whatever he's calling it, that may be a different name, I'm not sure. But he hit the last shot on Frankie for the win. After the match, he called out Christian Cage and Jurassic Express for a trios match or a six-man tag, whichever you want to call it, for next week on Rampage. So we get a thriller for Rampage Grand Slam, which apparently will be 2 hours as well next week, uh, or for next Friday. So that's your treat for Dynamite. So, and Cole's partners will be the Young Bucks. So, heck of a six-man tag. Looking forward to that. And also a match that was announced for Rampage. So, the new AEW Tag Team Champions, the Lucha Brothers, will face off against the Butcher and the Blade, which should be a nice match. Obviously, they both have history when they were aligned with Eddie Kingston, but now they're separated. Now that Butcher's back, this should be a fun match and a good test for the Lucha Brothers. So then they were backstage, and Sammy Guevara was with Fuego del Sol. They announced that with Fuego's new contract, he bought a car. So Fuego said he traded anything to be the TNT champion. So Sammy said, "Is that a challenge?" And then Fuego said, "Yeah." So Fuego said he put up his car for a match for against Miro again on Rampage for the TNT Championship, which was confirmed. I mean, Fuego, people love him. You know, he's that gritty underdog. Um, I'm curious if they can pull it off as good as the last match was, but we'll see. So then we get MJF. He was out in the ring with Wardlow. He dished it out on New Jersey, much like he did on Cincinnati last week. So he addressed those that he said might have been offended by his comments last week. He said he doesn't care. So then he said he would have a conversation with the late, great Brian Pillman. Brian Pillman Jr. is dead. So at first he looked up to the heavens and he said, "Oh, Mr. Pillman, sir." And then he said, "Oh, what the heck?" So then he looked down and then he said, "Hey, Pillman, we gotta talk." So then he said that his son, if he shows up, that he will get massacred against MJF next week in Arthur Ashe. So then he's about to say he's better than him and he knows it, but all of a sudden we hear Brian Pillman Jr.'s music hits. He sent Wardlow up the ramp to be wary of Brian Pillman Jr., but all of a sudden Brian Pillman Jr. he came out of the crowd with a chair and had MJF cornered in the turnbuckle. Then Wardlow confronted Pillman Jr. He slapped Wardlow, which obviously angered him. And then obviously Wardlow went after Pillman, but Pillman pulled the bottom rope, and then he went to swing at Wardlow with the chair, but they fended off, and MJF and Wardlow retreated. Obviously, I'm intrigued for this match next week to see how Pillman Jr. develops. And I mean, we don't see MJF in the ring wrestling often, so see how it goes. So then we got FTR versus Matt Sydal and Dante Martin. Matt Sydal and Dante Martin make a good combination, I will say. You know, they're both high flyers, obviously. Sydal is the veteran. Martin, obviously, his brother is still out with injury. Sydal usually teams with his brother. I'm guessing they just thought more of a showcase for Dante. This is a good match, though, for what it was. So, at the start of the match, Dante went for a springboard from the apron to the inside the ring, but Cash Wheeler, he was down on the apron. He kicked out Dante, and Dante landed on the ring apron. So then, eventually, after a attack on Dante, was a hot tag to Matt Sydal, and then they landed stereo dives on the outside ring on FTR. Then, as they came out from break, a good spot. So FTR they caught Sydal, but Martin with a beautiful dive missile drop kick knocked Sydal onto FTR. And then after exchange 1-2 of Dante versus FTR, FTR followed up with the big rig on Dante for the win. FTR gets another win, and again, another showcase for Dante Martin. Can't complain. So, another match that was announced for next week, we got Maduro Suzuki and Lance Archer versus John Moxley and Eddie Kingston. And apparently, Suzuki and Archer used to team in New Japan. They showed footage of that. I mean, it's just strange because Archer is arguably the most underutilized talent as far as AEW. It's just strange how he's used. I mean, yes, Brian Cage, you can argue as well, but Archer, in the Spay feud with Moxley and Suzuki, it's just strange. Because last we saw on Dynamite, he got attacked by the Man of the Year, so. So then Malachi Black, he came out to the ring. He addressed the House of Black and he said there's an enemy in the building. So the camera cut to the audience, Rosario Dawson, who is a fellow judge with Cody Rhodes for his Go Big show on TNT. So she came out of the crowd, went face to face with Black, then all of a sudden we see Cody Rhodes. He came down from the concourse area to the crowd, and Dawson, she jumped up on the back of Black, which got Black's attention long enough for Cody to come, because he was a long way away, it looked like, to the rampway or ringside. Then finally, he got to ringside and they brawled, apparently, to the outside of the arena. So that was pretty much it. Setting up for the rematch next week in Arthur Ashe. Should be a good one. So then we got Dan Lambert in the ring. I will admit, I like his promo work. What I don't like is him with the Man of the Year. That's what I don't like. So he was there with Andre Arlovsky, Dos Santos, Kayla Harrison, Paige Van Zandt, excuse me. And the Man of the Year in the ring. He was cutting a promo, and Chris Jericho, out of anyone, interrupts Dan Lambert. And so he was with Jake Hager and talked about how Dan Lambert is a fat face piece of shit. And apparently next week, which I'm assuming will be on Rampage because it's 2 hours, and with all these other matches, next week it'll be Chris Jericho and Jake Hager for some Men of the Year. I like the match, I just cannot get into the Men of the Year. They're just not a good tag team to me. So then we got Jade Cargill and Leyla Hirsch. Now, they were in Jersey, and Leyla Hirsch is from Jersey. Usually when AEW comes across people in their hometown, they usually give them wins in their hometown. Last week we saw Jon Moxley and Brian Pillman Jr. both win in Cincinnati. So there's that. However, the hometown girl, Leyla Hirsch, did not get the win against Jade Cargill. Yes, it was her hometown, but the right women won. Cargill won with her chicken wing press slam for the win. So then afterwards, we had CM Punk confronted by Hook and Taz. And he was ambushed by Powerhouse Hobbs. And he was slammed through the commentary table. Brutal spot, but that was the last we heard of CM Punk on commentary. So next week, for Rampage, we got Powerhouse Hobbs versus CM Punk. We still have not seen Ricky Starks actually there. So, but for CM Punk, but I think they're building towards it eventually, because apparently we're going to get another match between Cage and Starks. So perhaps they do this match and then CM Punk face off against Ricky Starks. So then we got Darby Allin versus Shawn Spears. Good match for what it was. So there was the steel steps. They were propped up by Spears near the outer part of the ring. So Darby was getting bashed and cornered by Spears to the steel steps, and then he went for knee shot to Darby into the steps, but he missed. He flipped off Sting, so he was selling his knee. Then Darby was going crazy, got the offense on Spears, but totally stepped in front of Spears, stopped Darby from delivering a suicida. They were back in the ring. Darby hit Code Red from their fall. Then Darby hit a stunner, which knocked Spears onto the steel steps that were propped up. Then Darby, like a cannon, fires off with suicida, knocks Spears off the steel steps, rolls him back in the ring, hits a coffin drop to the back of Spears, rolls up Spears for the win. Afterwards, FTR, they attacked Sting and Darby, and with the help of Tully, they landed a spike pile driver on Sting, and so Spears, he wiped off the face paint, Darby's signature face paint, during his match with Darby, but when they assaulted Spears, or when they assaulted Sting, totally wiped off some of the face paint of Sting. So there's that. Then what was scheduled to be, I'm using air quotes, scheduled to be, Tony Schiavone was going to speak with Bryan Danielson, but Don Callis and K Omega, they interrupt. And so Danielson, he challenged Omega to a match. He said sometime it'll be for the title, but for now he just wants to see who's the better wrestler. He wants the best bout machine. He wants the god of pro wrestling. So he said that Omega has not lost his touch or confidence. He's just lost his balls. Having Callis be talk for him. So then Omega accepted the challenge of Danielson. And next week we got the match, which will obviously be the main event. Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. Now, there's obviously two ways they could go with this match, because it's Bryan Danielson's first match in AEW. Now, you know how big he is, and Kenny Omega is the world champion. He's not going to take a loss. So, and an on-title match. So, two ways. Either it'll, because we haven't seen it in a while, a time limit draw between the two they could do to keep Omega and Danielson strong without pitting either. Or you could have a screwy finish where Omega wins with probably the help of the Elite or Callis, and still keeps Danielson strong, but Omega's not losing. I think that's the best point. It's just how they keep, because it's Danielson's first match, what do they do? But I'm pumped for Arthur Ashe next week. Then we got in the main events, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus 2.0, Matt Lee and Jeff Parker. So, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston, they were making their entrance and into the ringside area, but they were jumped from behind by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. So, obviously, before the match, no DQ so far. So, but eventually, Kingston and Moxley got the advantage back. Garcia was thrown to steel steps. Moxley was beaten down, but he got hot tag to Kingston. Hit back fist to Jeff Parker. Hit DT to Matt Lee. Then tag back in Moxley, and they hit their finisher half and half clothesline suplex combo for the win. Afterwards, Suzuki, who complained about or was upset about his music and his entrance being cut from the match with Boxley last week, but this time he got full entrance, came down, confronted Moxley from behind. Archer took out the legs of Kingston. They brawled. So, And that was pretty much how the show went off the air. So, got a few matches to look forward to Friday. We got Miro versus Fuego del Sol. We got Lucha Brothers versus Butcher and the Blade. Match I'm looking forward to. Then obviously next week for Arthur Ashe. So we got Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. We got Britt Baker defending her women's title versus Ruby Soho. Darby Allin and Sting versus FTR. Interesting match. We got Powerhouse Hobbs versus CM Punk. We got Adam Cole and the Young Bucks versus Christian Cage and Jurassic Express. Brian Pillman Jr. versus MJF. And we also got Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black. So, very epic lineup for next week with both. Oh, yeah, also Chris Jericho and Jake Hager for Man of the Year. But epic lineup for both Rampage and Dynamite for Grand Slam next week. But that's the episode for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you did, click that like button. Want to see more, click that subscribe. Obviously, I'll be back Saturday, AEW Rampage. But thank you for joining me. Hope you all be safe, and peace.